Hey everyone, I hope you all are having a great week too. Just wanted to check in since this Sunday you have your first paper final draft due. Some of you did submit a draft, so if you submitted a rough draft this past weekend, then you will get comments on your draft. Those comments will be available starting tomorrow on Friday. And you can go back into the Paper One Rough Draft peer review Dropbox and read those reviews from your classmates and from me. If you did not submit a draft and you have any questions before Sunday, feel free to email me. Just wanted to go over a few of the requirements for Paper One. So remember that you can go back and read past announcements by going over here to the left tab. On the home screen, you will always see the most recent 3 announcements, but there are ones before this that I've posted, so you may want to go back and check those out. There's some different details on, for Paper One, having Microsoft Word available. If you don't already have that on your computer, you'll need to use Microsoft Word for Paper One. You can also use Google Docs. If you're comfortable using the Google Docs, you'll just download the Google Docs as a Microsoft Word document to go ahead and submit. So either way, the actual submission needs to be a Microsoft Word. I do not accept PDFs. And in case you have like a MacBook, I would not be able to open Pages. So do ensure that your submission is a Microsoft Word document. Also, when you go to write your paper, you'll want to use MLA format. And you can access information about MLA format by going to the modules tab. And then our second module is our formatting module. So in this, I have information about what plagiarism is, how to avoid it. That will be more useful as we start Paper 2 next week, because we will have a source involved for Paper 2. This first paper, though, is just your own thoughts and description of an event or experience that you recently completed. So there is no sources that are needed for this first paper. With that said, if you do include something from a source, make sure you cite it. Email me if you have any questions, since this is just the first paper. You may have questions about citations. I will review a lot more about citations next week when we start Paper 2. So the basic formatting that everyone is required to use for Paper One is things like line spacing and having a title, having this header with your last name and page number. So that is all set up here. And I've made it pretty easy so that you can just use this Word doc. So you can actually go up here and click on the link for the Word doc, hit OK, and it will open for you. You can hit enable editing, and now you can go in and actually change, your name here. Oops, if I can spell. Nope, that was my maiden name, so sorry if that was confusing. So that should be Instructor Boyle Bradley. That's fine too. That was before I was married. And put the date that the paper is due and whatnot. So you'll see here the spacing is already set up. But if you were to do it yourself, you would definitely need to highlight the entire paper, go up here, make sure that it is in Times New Roman, 12-point font. That is MLA formatting requirements. And then you can go to the paragraph button and make sure that the spacing is set to 0 and 0 and then double spacing. So there is no works cited needed for this first paper, as long as you don't use any sources. So for your first paper, this would be the formatting requirements, is that you have your name, instructor name, the course, the date, a creative title for your first paper, so not just Paper One, but something that has to do with the experience or event that you attended, and then indent each paragraph, and then just double space. So no extra spacing like between paragraphs like that. We don't want that. So we just want all double space from the top to the bottom. And then also to go in here and change your header, you can just double click, and then that way that gives you the option to change to your last name, and then you can click back out to save that. So that is the basic requirement for MLA for the first paper. Just a reminder, the Paper One guidelines are in the week 1 module, so you can go in there and check out the guidelines. And there's also 3 different sample papers. So I wanted to give you all a chance to look at some papers that previous students have written to see how they use descriptive language, how they use some different narrative techniques like inserting dialogue. You don't have to have dialogue. Since this is a narration, you would be using first person, but pieces of dialogue like this can help tell your story. You'll see that in the reading that we had last week, Manning's Arm Wrestling with My Father. There were bits of dialogue in there. And then also this week with the 2 additional, one from Tan and then Nye, both of those readings also include dialogue. So all of the readings that you've done last week and this week should be good examples of how to write with description and how to use narrative techniques. You can read those published text again in addition to these 3 sample student papers for a good idea of how to write your own paper. The paper 1 needs to be 3 pages for the final draft. That is double spaced. And if you have time, if you've written a draft but didn't have that draft ready this past weekend to submit to the Rough Draft Dropbox, but now you do have, a draft that's started, you can use Smart Thinking to get a bit of feedback from a writing tutor before you submit your final draft. So Smart Thinking you can access here in our course on the left-hand side. And then we also have writing tutors on each campus at Eastern Florida, and there's also an online writing tutor through the Palm Bay campus. So you can always submit your draft there as well to get a little bit of feedback before you submit for a grade. So I hope you all are having a wonderful week. Please let me know how I can help. This first paper shouldn't be too difficult since this is your choice on choosing a place or an event to discuss, and there's no sources used just yet, just easing you all into the writing process, and hope you have some fun with this first paper. Thanks so much.